everyone.
Good morning.
Don't expect to hear me on the microphone because apparently this is not amplifying anything, it's just talking to the recording. So if you can't hear me in the back, just raise your hand, I'll try and shout louder. You good? Yeah. Excellent. So, good morning, my name is Mark, I'm one of the co-founders of Encapsula. Before we talk about Encapsula and what we do, quick question in the audience. Who has websites running these versions from 1.6 to 2.5? All right, if you start moving uncomfortably in your chair in the next couple of minutes, that's typically, or it's very, very normal. Because if you haven't upgraded to 2.5 to 0.3, you're actually at risk, or your websites are at risk to being hacked. I don't know how many of you know about this, but try this at home, but only on your own websites, not on anyone else's website. What you can really do very, very easily, and what's going on today in the website world, is anyone with an email address, and you can go to Mailinator and get an untraceable email address, can then go to your website, and in the registration page, attempt to register. All you have to do is simply fail the registration, very, very simple. Just type in the wrong email address, and you'll fail the registration process. On the failure page, go into a Firebug or any type of editing capability, insert a certain field into that form with those parameters, and sign up. Guess what you are?
Admin.
You're an admin. Okay? You get the confirmation email, you click on the link, you sign in. Guess what? Kevin Mitnick's an admin on your Joomla website. I'll take questions at the end, all right? So you're probably asking, well, great, that's there, but why should anyone come after me? Okay, I have a couple of websites. There are 650 million websites out there online. You know, I'm not Bank of America, I'm not Fort Knox, no one's trying to break into my website. Well, the truth is that it's all about automation today. It's not about you personally, it's about bots that are doing this on a large scale basis. And in fact, some of these websites are actually discoverable through Google. So if you know how to search things correctly on Google, you can actually find which websites are on different versions based on some characteristics that they have, and you can find that out. What you also don't realize is that 51% of website traffic today is actually non-human. This is based on research that we did, and I'll explain again about what we do in just a minute. Some of this automated traffic's okay. Some of it's Google, but a lot of it are those that are trying to hack into your websites. Now, obviously, they are overloading your servers, they're potentially hacking in, posting comments or spam comments, doing things that are pretty bad for your sites. And although you have to let Google in, most of you don't know, but there's a great percentage of those that claim to be Google coming to your website that are actually not Google. And in some research that we did, surveying over 1,000 sites, looking at them over a certain period of time, we came up with a pretty amazing statistic. 16.3% of websites suffer from what we call Google impersonation. So it means at least one attempt of somebody or something coming to the website saying that they're Google and they weren't actually Google. And among those sites that suffered from impersonation, it actually was a repetitive process in which 21%, a fifth of those times you thought it was Google coming to your website. You let them in, we obviously want Google to come, scan me as much as you want, improve my rankings. It was actually a fake. What we typically do is we let Google in, we let them scan our website. What they are typically doing is they're putting down our content, they're posting spam. We tend to give Google the VIP treatment, and therefore we always let them in, but not all Googles are actually Google, just as an FYI. So what can we do about it? And this is where Encapsula essentially comes into the mix. Just a quick hand raise. Who knows what Encapsula is? All right, a couple of people here. We're a fairly new service, only a year and a half in the market. But what we are is a cloud-based service that through a simple DNS switch, we protect and accelerate your website. You don't have to make any changes to the in terms of hardware or software. Again, it's a simple DNS switch. In terms of company, very briefly, we're a 30-people company. As you can see, we have pretty big names that are using our service, but we also have thousands and thousands of smaller sites. We have a free program as well, or free plan online that people can sign up with. And we're protecting tens of thousands of websites today. What we really get, or what customers get when they sign up for the service is, first of all, from a security perspective, protection against automation, anti-bot technology. We can identify who's human, what's not, based on a whole bunch of things, not just by the user agent, but multiple aspects of their behavior. We offer a full-blown web application firewall. So those that don't know what a web application firewall, it's that thing that protects you against SQL injections, cross-site scriptings, and vulnerabilities like I just described. We also provide Ddos Protection. So because all the traffic has to filter through us, anything on the network level that's not layer 7 gets blown off by definition. Anything that's layer 7 that is an applicative attack will filter out because we have that anti-bot technology. We also make your site faster. So we offer a full-blown CDN. We cache your content on our edges. Incapsula is built essentially as a globally distributed network. We optimize your content, we minify it, we compress it. We also manage the connections to it, so we're really boosting its performance. What we're also able to do is load balance traffic. So if you have multiple servers or multiple instances running the same application, we can load balance them instead of you having to stick an F5 appliance in your data center or anything like that. We can do that all from the cloud. As I said, we're essentially a mega proxy in the cloud. Okay, all your traffic, once you make that DNS change, is routed through Incapsula. We inspect all your incoming traffic, make sure that it's legitimate. If it's legitimate, we pass it on to the origin server. And if it's not, we block it. We don't let them through. As I said, we have data centers spread across the globe. We geo-optimize your traffic. So somebody, for example, if your websites are hosted in Dallas, Texas, and somebody's coming in from Amsterdam, they'll route through our Amsterdam data center, that's where we'll do the security enforcement, but that's also where we'll serve them a lot of the content that's been cached on our edges. So a great deal of their website actually, just like any other CDN works, will actually get served from a local data center, and your website will get speeded up. How does it work? It's a really very simple setup process. When you sign up to Incapsula, all you have to do is you enter your domain name, you press add website. Within 60 seconds, we basically go out and we fetch a whole bunch of data for your website. What its IP address is, who's your domain name server, geographic information, whether it's an SSL or non-SSL traffic, or if it supports SSL or not. And within a couple of seconds, we provide you with alternative DNS instructions. All you have to do is go into your zone file and make changes to your DNS records and point them at the records that we've just given you. Once those propagate through the internet, or those TTLs, time to live values, kick in, and your traffic starts running through Incapsula, we'll start applying that protection, applying the acceleration, and you'll get a whole host of capabilities within the application. These are different screenshots. We'll show you your daily visits, traffic, who's coming to your website, how many of them are human, how many are not. Maybe some of you guys say, well, I get that in Google Analytics, but in Google Analytics you only get human traffic, or you only get those that are actually rendering JavaScript and are potentially not harmful. This gives you essentially the mirror image, or the complement image to what you see on Google Analytics. From a performance perspective, we'll show you how much traffic is going through, how much we're caching, what percentage of traffic's being cached. We'll also show you your cumulative bandwidth, where your traffic is getting served from, so you get a better understanding of where your customers are actually coming from, which data centers of ours are actually being more active in the delivery of your site. We'll show you all the security alerts, visitors from blacklisted IPs, visitors from blacklisted countries, and I'll show you some of the things you can do and set up in terms of customization. All the different attack types, DDoS attacks, etc. You can even go in and at a granular level of per attack, see who attacked you, what IP address, what they did. You can drill down deeper and see what they did within the session, essentially. If they try to inject a secret statement, you'll see what they did, what form it was on. You can create fine-tuning, or you can fine-tune the application. So for example, if you're the support portal for MySQL, people are going to be uploading SQL statements into forms because they want customer service, they want customer support. For 99.9 of the apps online, that's a SQL injection attempt, but for that specific application, you can tell us that field I'm validating on the back end, allow SQL statements to be inserted there. From a security settings perspective, you can define how you want us to treat the bots, the non-humans that come to your website. We can present them with captures. Obviously, we know how to differentiate between the good bots and bad bots. So we have a list of the good bots, like the Google and Bings, and any other services that you may use, like you use Pingdom to verify that your website's up. Okay, those are the type of services that you actually want coming to your website, you want accessing your website. And we have a very, very long list of those good entities. And then we have those that we can identify positively as being bad. And there's those that are great. It may be a watchdog that you've written yourself, or a service, a daemon that you've written yourself. We have no way of knowing about. You can go in and essentially whitelist and clear that to be able to access your website. You can block specific countries. You don't want anyone from a specific geography coming to your website because they've known to hack you and you don't do business in that website. You don't want them overwhelming your server. You can go in and blacklist that country. Same as with IP addresses or full IP address ranges. And you can also whitelist. So maybe you have a scanning service. Okay, that's a security service. It actually tries to do SQL injections and cross-site scripting attacks on your website. You want that to be able to access your website, to be able to provide that report to you. You can go in and whitelist those specific IP addresses. As I said, there's a full-blown web application file with hundreds and thousands of different rules. You can define the policies that you want, whether you want to block the request, block the IP address, and again, create those fine-tunings. This may look somewhat complicated for most of you, but the default settings that this comes with are good to go for most websites. And if you do know what you're doing, you can go in and you can fine-tune things even further. You get notifications and reports. So on a weekly basis, you'll get a nice fancy weekly report that will tell you exactly how many attacks you had, what the traffic was, how many humans came to your website, and so forth. And you can get real-time notifications. So if someone there and then is trying to inject something into your code, or there was a hack attempt, you'll get an email in real time telling you something, somebody did something bad, and based on the policy, this is what we did. As I said, this is a type of weekly report that you can see, and you can also send this to your customers if you have customers' websites using this. So you're probably asking, why has this got to do with Joomla? Well, what I just showed now is not necessarily related to Joomla. It's completely website agnostic. We don't care if you're running a LAMP stack or a Microsoft stack or any stack that I haven't mentioned. But what we have done for Joomla and what we do for the most common CMS platforms is essentially two things. First of all, we have a set of rules. So that initial screen that I showed you, that when we scan your website, when you first set it up, we actually can identify that you're running a Joomla website based on some scanning that we do. We can then apply a specific set of rules that are Joomla specific to protect you and the application from anything that's non-generic. So for example, the vulnerability that I just showed you, anyone that would be sitting behind Incapsula, we'd actually identify that hack attempt and block them. So those are specific Joomla security rules that are essentially included out of the box. What's also important is not just the security rules, but also the fine-tuning of false positives. Most of you upload JavaScript, HTML code through the admin console, okay, with any given website that should be considered like an attack. But because we can identify that you're uploading it through the admin page or the admin area, and we've mapped each of the common CMS platforms with what is administrative and what's not, we can actually not shout or not create a false positive error when you actually do that. What that means is that you don't have to go and fine-tune all your Joomla websites and say, hey, that's my administrative console, those are my people that can update, that can upload content, etc. If you have thousands or hundreds of websites, we've done it once in a central way. If something in the next release of Joomla changes and the mapping needs to be changed, we'll do it once. We have a security team that's what they do. The same way as when a vulnerability is announced, they go in and they create a remedy there and then. and it gets pushed down to every single one that's using the service. That's what we do for Joomla as well. But specifically what we launched this week is a Joomla extension that you can actually manage your Incapsula account from in your admin. The motivation behind this was for service providers, and I'm sure there's service providers that are sitting here in the audience. We have lots of service providers that actually use the service for their customers. So they purchase it for their customers, they have a global account, and they add it to their customer's bill, and their customers say, well, show me what you're doing for me. Now, you don't want to give them another account, to log in, to maintain their credentials for, and they're focused on their CMS. They go, they update their content on a regular basis. Here they can now see what you're actually doing to them. You're doing for them from a protection perspective and acceleration perspective. So they get a very, very good synopsis of what's going on. We worked very carefully to take the most important things out of the main application and essentially put them into the component. By the way, we have a full API, so anyone could really build this component on their own. If you guys didn't want something here, you could pull it out, build your own component, and pull other data that we have that I showed earlier from our application into this component. You can build a completely custom component for your customers. What you'll see is there's an Incapsula menu item there. You can log in or sign up to Incapsula directly from the CMS. So even if you don't have an account, if you, for example, you want to download it, if you download the component into a site that's not on Incapsula, you can sign up to Incapsula directly here. You'll sign up for our free plan, and within a couple of minutes, you'll get instructions on changing your DNS settings. Very similar to the way I showed you in the backend application. And you'll start seeing your statistics, your traffic statistics, your security and your performance statistics. You can single sign on from here into your account. So for example, if you want to view the details of this specific event, click that, it will single sign on into your account. You can do any changes you want in your master account. You don't have to maintain a different username or the password. And you can manage it all from there. There's also some setting changes. You can change your plan. You could upgrade your plan to a paying plan. You can change your plans depending on the different options that we have. Most people, and this is actually a slide I added in yesterday after I saw a couple of presentations, because everyone was saying, well, how much on other things. So we have a variety of plans. We have a free plan that is for small non-SSL websites. They get some basic security, mostly anti-automation or anti-bot capabilities. And as you move higher up, there are more features, more security capabilities, up to our enterprise plans, which are for really large websites that are pushing, we have websites that are pushing 200-300 megabits per second through us on an ongoing basis. Questions?
Thank you. Could you take a moment and just give us a broad overview? When you're canvassing your website out to servers across the globe, how does that affect your analytics, your Alexa traffic, things like that? How does that work?
So the very short answer, it has no effect. The fact is that the entities that need to know about us know about us. So Google, for example, knows that we're a CDN, and Google knows how to treat CDNs accordingly. By the way, we're not unique in this, in our architecture or the way that we are built. Akamai's been doing this from 99, 2000. The largest websites online essentially run through a CDN or services like Akamai, and their search engine rankings are definitely not affected. What we try to attempt, or what we try to do with Incapsula, is first of all take that enterprise grade level security. We're actually a spin out of a larger public company that sell appliances, boxes to government agencies, the big banks. You want to buy $100,000 worth of appliances, I can put you in touch with their sales guys. But in a cloud delivery model, anyone with a website, regardless of if it's a 200 people a week website or a 200,000 people a week website, can use the service. And what we've done, you may ask what we're different to other types of services. We're a very security-oriented service. So there are other services that do things similar from a speed perspective, but from a security perspective, that's where we've placed our focus. and that's where we are concentrating our development efforts.
You mentioned that out of the box you had certain rules that were built for Joomla. How do you keep those rules up to date? Where do you get your security information?
So we have a security team, and that's what they...
Repeat the question, please.
All right, so I was asked, how do we essentially keep up to speed or up to date with all the different vulnerabilities that come out? We have a security team that's their sole purpose in life. They receive updates of all the most recent CVEs. They prowl the forums. That's what they are paid to do. They don't do it just for Joomla. I'll give you an example. Last September, I don't know if you guys remember, there was a massive vulnerability discovered on Apache. Okay, anyone with a pretty lame PC could take down a massive website through a vulnerability that was introduced. As soon as our guys got to hear about it, which was, again, they sit on the feeds of these CVEs, etc., they put in a remedy. It took them 10 minutes. Basically, you have to identify someone trying to take advantage of that specific exploit. They put in a remedy to be able to catch that. Anyone sitting behind us was immediately, essentially what's called virtually patched. Their server, the Apache, was full vulnerable, but because they were sitting behind a service like ours, they were essentially immune to that type of vulnerability.
How do you handle SSO transactions on your site?
SSO, SSL.
SSO. So in other words, our site is a portal site with lots of single sign-on going out from it, lots of just content displayed back on the site from other domains coming back in through SSO transactions. So you're going to be blocking all of those because it's cross-site scripting, essentially?
I don't think so, but I probably need to understand the scenario a little bit closer. I'd be happy to discuss it with you afterwards.
Yeah, what happens to me as a subscriber if, in spite of your solution, somebody happens to have my site?
Well, first of all, we don't offer a guarantee. The reason we don't offer a guarantee is because even when you go and you buy a checkpoint Juniper firewall, you put it into your data center, no one's going to give you a guarantee. I can only guarantee that we can cover what we've thought of what we've done. We don't offer a guarantee, and I think any security vendor would be pretty foolish to offer a guarantee because I know what's out there now. I don't know what's coming tomorrow. I can say that I don't know how many of you guys sat through the sessions where they showed the statistics about how many versions get updated. Even with Joomla becoming easier and easier to update, the chances of us virtually patching something before you are significantly higher. That's what we do. That's what we are paid to doing. You're leveraging the economies of scale that we can essentially make available. When our security team does an update like that, every single Joomla website that's on the service is more secure. That's what I can say in terms of guarantee.
Thank you.
Okay, I was just kind of curious. You had explained that you check for the Joomla administrator panel for certain requests to be able to allow certain things, like if you're editing a template or some such. And if you're I was kind of wondering if you have any kind of protection against say cross-site request forgeries or some such, where it's not like an SQL injection or an XSS injection where there's code being injected as much as there is a fake request or a forged request, as with spear phishing emails that are targeted directly to your site to try and trick like loading things up in iframe as a request forgery and not necessarily an attack. A good example might be like some kind of clickjacking or something that would allow you to have your administrator or your user level raised up or something like that.
Right. So
is that something that you guys cover as well, or how?
Yes, it is something that we cover. Again, I'm not going to say we cover every single attack vector because it's essentially an infinite array. But things like most of those attacks that you're describing are attempts to steal credentials from your users. Cross-site scriptings or cross-site request forgeries, we do provide protection against those type of things. So it's part of the web application firewall. The same engine is being used by banks that sit on our service, by large e-commerce sites that need to be PCI compliant. By the way, if there are any merchants or those that provide or build services for merchants, we're a PCI service provider level 1 certified provider, which means that it's okay for us to transport credit card data, which is not something that all CDNs are, allowed to do essentially.
Kind of two questions, but the first one touches on what you just said about PCI. I noticed on some of your screens that you had something about PCI on there. I was wondering what a lot of us are dealing with trying to make our sites PCI compliant for e-commerce and so on. So if you could explain that, touch on that a little bit. And secondly, just about the caching and for making change on our site, how quickly that be switch to your CDN.
All right. So the first question about PCI is how do we help with PCI? So the first thing is, first of all, as I said, we're a PCI certified service provider. That means that it's okay for you to use us as a service provider if you're transporting credit cards. Which, by the way, if you're using a CDN that's not PCI compliant, you by definition are breaking your compliance. So that's one thing. It's not going to help you become compliant. It's just putting you at rest that you can use us under PCI requirements. You can essentially exclude us of the scope of your audit, which you're not going to be able to audit third-party vendors like us, even if you really wanted to. What we do help you with PCI, one of the requirements for PCI, requirement 6.6 is to install a web application firewall in front of your website. And that's something that we help you check the box with. So if you have encapsulated in front of you, you're actually protected, you're actually compliant with that area of the PCI, which is something that's not very easy to do today. Web application firewalls have typically been very difficult to install, difficult to maintain. The reason we did what we did was to essentially make this type of web application firewalls at that level, at the level that you really need, available through a very easy and accessible way. The second question about updating your content, it's a really good question because the worst thing we can do is essentially serve stale content to your end users. And what we do is we have two modes of caching essentially. One's our standard mode, in which we're actually obeying directives from your HTTP headers. Okay, so if you tell us that this specific resource will expire in a week, we'll cache it for a week. If you tell us never to cache it because it varies, we won't cache it. So we're essentially we'll work like the end user's browser works, but we're aggregating it on our edges, so we're actually caching it on your behalf. We have an advanced mode, which is built for those websites that don't provide any directives. And then we have learning algorithms that essentially detect specific requests, and what comes back makes like a checksum or creates a signature of the resource that comes back. It's a bit. If one bit in there changes, it's considered that it's different. And we'll learn how often your website's changing. Think about a database-driven website like Joomla. The homepage could be rendering, every single time going to the database if you haven't got your cache turned on. You may not want to turn your cache on because turning your cache on is very, very aggressive in the sense that any changes you make only get pushed out after a certain amount of time. We learn dynamically each and every resource, and it's something that's very difficult to do on a per resource basis. And based on that, we essentially know how often something changes. And we go and we check periodically. Even if that resource hasn't been requested, we'll go and check if it's changed or not. Sometimes we'll check, and if it's not changed, we won't pull it. We'll just be assured that it hasn't changed. We also have algorithms that do what we call like lazy loading, in the sense that we'll go, after we've served a certain resource, we'll still go asynchronously to the origin server and we'll pull a fresh resource. So even if we are essentially serving a stale instance of a resource, we do that once, and that's really effective for low traffic websites. If you're a high volume website, we're constantly checking back at the origin. We're doing that maybe 1 or 2, 3% of the time, so you're saving a significant amount of traffic. But if you're a low traffic website, we have to check back every couple of minutes to make sure that it's that the content hasn't changed. We do that.
Since it's DNS based, how will you protect, or what's a good practice to protect against people going directly after the IP address?
So what you need to do is, if you have a firewall, you essentially blacklist the entire world other than Encapsula on port 80 or 443. So you're only letting traffic to your front end come through Encapsula. You can do that with your HD access file as well if you don't have a firewall. That's really what you do. That's what our security conscious customers do. That's what you need to do. We have a list of or a range of IP addresses that we publish. You can pull them down through an API as well. So you can constantly keep your firewalls updated, because we do get issued more and more IP addresses on an ongoing basis.
I have a client that had a form. He hates the reCAPTCHA field and told him to turn it off. The minute he turns it off, of course, he gets gibberish. And so I said, we've got to turn it back on. And he said, well, why are these attacks happening? What's the motivation? So what's a good answer to tell a client? What is the motivation behind these security attacks? What are they hoping to gain by doing it?
All right, so I'll take the liberty, first of all, of saying, if you're sitting behind Encapsula, you can take down that reCAPTCHA, and you still will be protected, because we identify on the onset if that entity that's coming to your website is a human or a bot. So only the bots are essentially presented with those reCAPTCHAs, or should be presented with those reCAPTCHAs, while the humans that are presented with those reCAPTCHAs are actually frustrated humans. Especially if you're talking about checkout processes or areas where you want to minimize abandonment. That's a key area which CAPTCHAs are becoming really a nuisance today. The motivation behind trying to come to your website, first of all, is posting comment. Okay, so I can advance, or I can promote a whole bunch of products if I post comment spam. Don't remember the exact statistic, but I think 96 or 97% of all comments posted online are actually spam comments. That's essentially the motivation. It could be someone that's actually trying, or something that's actually trying to overload your website. Maybe filling out that form opens a Salesforce.com entry, or it creates an order on your backend, or it creates a lead. If you get 1,000 of those bogus ones in an hour, somebody's going to have to go and clean that up. It could be, those are essentially the motivations of doing that. Right, I think we're good. Any other questions? You can find me throughout the day. I'm the guy with the security shirt. Thank you.